Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 30 based on novel. So let's start. 9 color light rays spread across the sky like floodwater. Wherever those light rays passed by, the natural yuan power would vanish in a peculiar fashion. It looked as though they were vaporized by those light rays. Countless pairs of eyes stared solemnly at the sky, and there was a tinge of fear in their eyes. After all, they could feel that even a samsara stage expert would have to pay quite a heavy price in order to deal with Luo Tong's attack. Yet, Lindong actually dared to face it head-on. He was simply far too arrogant. He was actually struck by the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light. Joy as well as a vicious expression appeared on the faces of Teng Feng's group when they saw this scene. After all, they clearly knew how powerful the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light was. In fact, it was a powerful skill that was unique to the 9 Phoenix tribe. That peculiar light would follow members of the 9 Phoenix tribe ever since they were born. Moreover, the purer one's bloodline was, the stronger the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light one had. It was even rumored that during the ancient times, there was once an ultimate expert from the 9 Phoenix tribe who managed to vaporize all life within a 5,000-kilometer radius, using his 9 Phoenix Life transformation light. The 9 Phoenix Life transformation light did not possess a purely destructive force. In fact, not even a pit would appear if it made contact with the ground. However, it would vaporize flesh and blood the moment it came into contact with it. This peculiar and powerful technique had always been the signature move of the 9 Phoenix tribe, and many practitioners at the same level were terrified of it. Now that Lindong was hit by it head-on, they believed that it was impossible for the latter to survive. In contrast to the joy plastered on the faces of Teng Feng's group, the faces of the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's group were pale. Even Little Flame suddenly clenched his hands tightly together with a menacing look in his eyes. Clearly, they knew just how powerful the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light was. The entire plains was silent. Countless pairs of eyes were focused at the spot in the sky where the 9 color light rays shone the brightest. The result of this fight would likely be unveiled soon. Luo Tong was hovering in the sky with a huge light figure floating behind him. He wore an exceptionally menacing expression as he stared in front of him. There was a partially visible ferocity on the corner of his lips. After all, he did not believe that Lindong could handle this frightening attack, which even sent shudders down samsara stage experts who were on the same cultivation level as him. Behaving arrogantly just because you have some abilities. In your next life, you'd better learn. Luo Tong chuckled and ridiculed. However, before he could finish his sentence, his voice suddenly stopped. Instead, a tinge of shock suddenly flashed across his cold face. The 9 color light rays were disappearing at a frightening rate at this moment. As the light disappeared, a skinny figure once again appeared in front of countless numbers of disbelieving onlookers. A low and deep buzzing sound, similar to the noise made by a swarm of attacking locusts, suddenly reverberated across the air above the plains, marking an end to the silence that originally characterized this plains. How is this possible? Teng Feng's group were also stunned at this moment. He managed to block it? The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest also muttered to themselves in a startled manner. However, it seems like he suffered serious injuries. Every pair of eyes was gathered in that direction, and they saw that skinny figure maintaining his stance, whereby his right hand was extended. In fact, there was not the slightest bit of blood on his hand. However, his right arm was stripped bare and not the least bit of flesh was on it. Only a jade-white glow was present on his bone arm. Clearly, the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light had severely wounded Lindong. That attack only damaged his arm. Teng Feng's group had stunned expressions. After all, it was clear that Luo Tong's previous attack should be able to do much more than this. In fact, based on their predictions, Lindong should be dead without even leaving behind his corpse. Moreover, they could clearly see that Lindong's arm still existed. In other words, Luo Tong's 9 Phoenix Life transformation light had only removed the flesh on Lindong's arm. Although it was a serious injury, it was nothing worth mentioning to a genuinely powerful practitioner. After all, the life chi formed within one's body could regrow one's broken bones, and much less had to be said about one's flesh. You? Luo Tong's expression finally began to change at this moment. Clearly, he could not believe that Lindong had only lost the flesh on his arm, after enduring his 9 Phoenix life transformation light. It was painful. Lindong's hoarse low and deep voice spread as he slowly lifted his head. A frightening icy cold expression was currently plastered on his face. Although he was able to block the killing move from Luo Tong, the intense pain of having the flesh on his arm removed was still terrifying. Moreover, he knew that if it was not because of his primal dragon bone, Luo Tong's attack would have definitely seriously wounded him. Lindong stared intently at Luo Tong, whose expression was currently in flux. Deep within his purple-gold eyes, a fearsome brutalness surged forth. Bang! When the brutalness in his eyes reached its peak intensity, Lindong's body turned into a light figure before he shot forward. The murderous intent permeating the sky caused the surrounding temperature to fall. Currently, he was just like a death god that had descended into the world. Together with his fleshless arm, it made him look exceptionally fearsome. Roar? A low and deep dragon roar was emitted from within Lindong's body at this moment. Following which, a vaguely present fury engulfed this place. That fury was ancient and proud. It did not come from Lindong. Instead, it came from the primal dragon bone in his body. As the strongest set of bones in the dragon tribe, it also possessed great pride. The 9 Phoenix life transformation light might be strong, but it did not reach the point whereby it could challenge the primal dragon bone. Luo Tong looked at Lindong, who was charging over with a frightening aura, before his expression darkened. Both his hands formed a seal before the 9-color light behind him also became increasingly dazzling. I do not believe that my 9 Phoenix tribe's 9 Phoenix life transformation light is unable to deal with a mere human. A furious laughter was emitted from Luo Tong's mouth. He was clearly extremely furious with Lindong, who was very troublesome to deal with. Moreover, how could he possibly dare to call himself a member of the 9 Phoenix tribe, if he couldn't finish him off today? 9 Phoenix worship sage. The seals formed by Luo Tong's hands changed rapidly while his expression gradually became devout. After which, he bowed towards the empty sky in front of countless pairs of startled eyes. It looked as though he was worshipping something. A similarly ancient sharp cry resounded within Luo Tong's body before the 9-color light churned monstrously in the sky. 9 brilliant color large tails swayed before a huge 9-color bird, which carried a majestic and noble aura, appeared in a flash. 9 brilliant color tails were suddenly swung the moment the 9-color giant bird appeared. Following which, 9-color light gathered. The huge bird flapped its wings continuously before the light spread and even space itself was torn apart. That brilliant glowing figure was filled with the scent of death. Lindong lifted his head to look at the 9-color giant bird that was rushing over. Waves of intense pain spread throughout his body while blood seeped out from under his skin. It turns out that his blood and flesh actually showed signs of melting. However, up against this new development, Lindong still did not show any signs of retreating. Moreover, he also understood that he could no longer retreat. Luo Tong's actions clearly demonstrated his killing intent, and if his willpower faltered in the slightest way, he would not stand a chance to survive. Therefore, he could only find a path to survival amidst death. The bones within Lindong's body began to wiggle in a peculiar manner due to the threat of death. Following which, jade color light seeped through his flesh and erupted from it. An ancient and overbearing dragon roar resounded. Soon after, the jade color light gathered over the surface of Lindong's body. Looking from a great distance away, it had actually turned into a large ancient dragon with a jade color luster flashing over it. The dragon meandered and couched. An indescribable pressure spread across the place, causing the bodies of everyone present to bend slightly. It felt as though the jade dragon in front of them was the ruler of the entire demonic beast world. This pressure. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was stunned as he looked at the jade dragon behind Lindong. Suddenly, his body began to tremble intensely and even his voice became a little hoarse. Primal Dragon Bone. The words, which were finally emitted from his mouth, were filled with incomparable shock and surprise. He had already thought highly of Lindong by assuming that the latter had obtained the ancient dragon bone. However, he never expected that Lindong had instead obtained the strongest dragon bone in the dragon tribe, the primal dragon bone. That was the dragon bone which belonged to the supreme being, who had once unified the entire demonic beast world. Roar! The jade dragon curled and meandered forward. Then it collided ruthlessly with the 9-colored giant bird in front of countless pairs of shocked eyes. Bang! An earth-shaking loud noise reverberated across the sky. 9-color light and jade color light entwined together in wild manner before they eroded each other. After they made contact, even the space itself became distorted. Everyone was stunned when they saw this intense fight. After all, no one expected that the fight between the both of them would end up being so drawn out. Luo Tong's eyes were slightly red as he looked at this entwinement. He laughed furiously. Lindong, you indeed possess powerful techniques. Nonetheless, you are merely at the advanced profound death stage. Yet, you are trying to compete with me, a samsara stage expert, in terms of yuan power endurance. Truly an arrogant bastard. The entwinement of both light had clearly rapidly exhausted the strength of both parties. This exhaustion was clearly Lindong's Achilles heel. He might have a powerful combat strength, but from a certain point of view, he was unable to endure for long. That was because the strength of his yuan power was indeed inferior to Luo Tong. Let's end this quickly. The light rays entwined around each other before an icy cold murderous cry suddenly sounded. Immediately, Lindong shot out from the encasement of the jade dragon and appeared under the 9-color light rays. The flesh on the surface of his body melted rapidly under the shine of that light. Within a couple of breaths' time, a large portion of his body ended up exposing his jade-color bones. However, Lindong completely ignored the melting of his flesh. The intense pain being emitted from his body turned into a brutal aura, which accumulated in both of his eyes. After which, his body appeared in front of Luo Tong in a phantom-like fashion. Humph! Luo Tong's eyes became cold when he saw Lindong's terrifying outer appearance. However, he did not hesitate. Extending his hand, he looked just like a huge bird pouncing on a snake, as his palm slammed ruthlessly towards Lindong's heart, while being accompanied by a 9-color light. Bang! Lindong's expression was ferocious and he did not dodge as well. Instead, he extended his crystal-clear bone hand, which was no longer covered with flesh. His bone palm was just like a knife that pierced straight forward. Tear! The space itself seemed to be torn apart wherever the bone palm passed. In the next moment, it collided with Luo Tong's claw. The 9-color light, which could melt any flesh, shone onto the jade bones. However, it was completely useless. The bone palm easily tore through the 9-color light with little resistance. The two figures crossed each other with a single blow. The huge bird and jade dragon in the sky suddenly stilled. After which, they exploded with a loud bang. The heartbeats of countless onlookers increased as they looked at these two figures. Just who would emerge victorious in this life and death fight? Two figures stood with their backs facing each other. A gentle wind blew over and caused the corner of their clothes to flutter. Soon after, the sound of bone cracking appeared. Immediately, many pupils shrunk at this moment. This was because they saw that out of the two of them, one of their arms had exploded. After which, his body flew backwards, appearing as though he had suffered a heavy blow. Finally, he directly smashed onto the ground. Immediately, the land collapsed. A victor had finally emerged in this fight. The land continuously collapsed while it trembled. In a couple of breaths, a 10,000 feet large deep black hole had appeared in the plains below. Meanwhile, there were huge cracks at the edge of the dark hole and they grew like a spider web. Countless onlookers were staring at this scene, which was taking place right in front of them. Promptly, their heartbeats increased violently. After which, they suddenly lifted their heads to look at the only figure still standing in the sky. That figure was skinny yet fearsome. He was Lindong. However, Lindong currently looked extremely miserable. The flesh on both of his arms were completely stripped and only his bare bones remained. Meanwhile, there were jade-color bones protruding on the surface of his body, and more than half of the flesh on his body had vanished. Fortunately, Lindong's internal organs were protected by his primal dragon bone. As a result, they were not eroded by the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light. Nonetheless, Lindong was still severely wounded. Heavy and chaotic breaths were emitted from Lindong's mouth. His body was also tremblingly slightly owing to the intense pain from having his flesh stripped. His originally sharp and fearsome aura had become extremely weary, while the purple-gold luster in his eyes had also vanished. This intense battle was far too exhausting for him. Luo Tong was extremely formidable. If not for the fact that Lindong had obtained the primal dragon bone, it was highly likely that he would have suffered a crushing defeat thanks to the 9 Phoenix Life transformation light. A faint yuan power circulated within Lindong's body. It was filled with life as it flowed and began to repair Lindong's seriously wounded body. After which, traces of blood and flesh began to appear on his naked bones. However, from the looks of it, he would need quite some time in order to make a complete recovery. While restoring the lost flesh on his body, Lindong's dim but sharp eyes continued to stare at the huge pit below. According to the rules of the Sky Battle Arena, anyone who lands on the ground was considered as the loser. Therefore, this meant that Luo Tong had lost. However, defeat was not the same as death. Previously, Lindong had ruthlessly went all out and used his bone palm to cripple one of Luo Tong's arms. However, such injuries were evidently unable to kill him. No one knew whether Luo Tong would attack him again in anger. Moreover, it was likely that even Lindong would find it difficult to deal with an enraged 9 Phoenix tribe, ultimate Samsara stage expert. Luo Tong, I know that you are still alive. What are you doing hiding below instead of coming out? After waiting for a moment, when Lindong saw that Luo Tong had not surfaced, he quickly chuckled and said. Lindong's voice had just sounded when countless huge rocks shot out from within that huge pit. Following which, a miserable figure appeared in the sky. Countless pairs of eyes turned to look before they saw that Luo Tong's body was covered with fresh blood. Moreover, one of his arms was broken. As fresh blood continuously flowed from his broken arm, it gave him quite a miserable appearance. Currently, Luo Tong's aura was also a little sluggish. It seems like he had sustained severe injuries as well. You. Luo Tong's eyes turned bright red. His fingers were trembling as he pointed at Lindong. His face was covered with ferocity, killing desire, and embarrassment. Never did he imagine that he would be defeated by Lindong. He, the mysterious king of Mang Mountain, would actually be defeated by a human who was merely at the advanced profound death stage. Lindong stared coldly at a fearsome-looking Luo Tong. Meanwhile, there was a faint black lightning arc dancing on his bone palm. Although he was severely drained, it did not mean that he did not have any skills left. Luo Tong, you have already lost. Do you really plan on going back on your own words in front of so many people? Little Flame's cold cry suddenly resounded. After which, a rushing wind sound appeared before a couple of figures directly appeared in front of Lindong. They surrounded and protected him. It was Little Flame and the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio. When they saw that Little Flame's group had made a move, Teng Feng's group, who had been closely observing them, also swiftly appeared beside Luo Tong. They wore fearsome expressions as they stared back at Lindong's group. Bang! The leaders of both parties stared at each other while their massive armies also tensed up. From the looks of it, a huge war would break out should a mishap occur. The surrounding observers were all startled by this lineup. Promptly, many powerful individuals quickly frowned. Luo Tong had indeed lost the fight. Does he intend to go back on his own word? The demonic beast world worshipped strength. Since Luo Tong had already lost, he would only turn into a joke if he tried to look for an excuse. Big Brother Luo Tong. When Teng Feng saw those somewhat peculiar expressions, he hesitated for a moment. If Luo Tong was to truly lose control and attack in anger, it would severely damage their Mang Mountain's reputation. Luo Tong's ferocious eyes stared intently at Lindong. The murderous intent in his eyes seemed to be about to solidify. However, he was still rational, and even at a junction like this, he did not allow his murderous desire to override his sense of reasoning. Instead, he inhaled a deep breath of air before his trembling body slowly began to calm down. The 5 rounds of the Sky Battle Arena have ended. My 4 Titans Palace has 2 wins and 1 draw. Hence, the final result should be a draw. There should be no objections from your side, am I right? Lindong asked faintly. Being able to end this fight with a draw was an extremely satisfactory outcome for the Heaven Dragon Demon Commanders group. Although they were also Samsara stage experts, they were a little weaker when compared to the 5 great chiefs of Mang Mountain. Moreover, the other party was large in size and they possessed powerful divine objects. Hence, they knew that they were definitely no match for the Mang Mountain in a real fight. However, Lindong had managed to turn this hopeless situation into a draw. Hence, this was an extremely joyous matter for them. With regards to victory, they have never seriously entertained the possibility of it happening. After all, the 5 great chiefs of Mang Mountain were not ordinary individuals, and even Lindong had only managed to turn the situation around by utilizing his full strength. Compared to the joy from the Heaven Dragon Demon Commanders group, the expressions of Luo Tong's group were exceptionally ugly. That was because they did not expect that their Mang Mountain would actually end up with a draw against the newly formed 4 Titans Palace. Hence, they knew that they would become the butt of jokes once news of this incident spread. However, this was a fact and they were unable to change it. Hence, their faces could only maintain a gloomy expression as they accepted this extremely stifling result in front of countless pairs of stunned onlookers. Since all of you are willing to accept it, let's end today's Sky Battle Arena fight. You guys from the Mang Mountain should return to where you came from. This Beast War region will be the territory of my 4 Titans Palace in the future. Lindong smiled towards Luo Tong's group. However, his smile caused one to shudder involuntarily when accompanied by his current appearance. Are you qualified to utter such words? Teng Hua cried out furiously. I can fight with you again if you are unwilling to accept the result. Little Flame took a step forward. The ferocious aura radiating from him was frightening and his brutal aura caused Teng Hua to be stunned. Lindong, my Mang Mountain has truly underestimated you this time around. However, do you really think that your 4 Titans Palace has the ability to oppose my Mang Mountain? You should not forget that behind the Mang Mountain stands the 9 Phoenix tribe. Teng Feng's eyes sunk as he coldly stated. Indeed, even though they were able to end this Sky Battle Arena fight in a draw, the overall strength of the Mang Mountain exceeds the 4 Titans Palace. Moreover, they had a powerful backer. Henceforth, all Mang Mountain had to do was to find an excuse to invade them again, and what could the 4 Titans Palace do then? Without a powerful backer, a weak alliance like the 4 Titans Palace was basically worthless. Your Mang Mountain has the 9 Phoenix tribe, but my 4 Titans Palace has the Dragon tribe. Lindong lowered his eyelids before he casually said, Dragon tribe. Luo Tong's group was stunned at this moment. A ridicule involuntarily rose on the corner of their lips. They glanced at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. Could it be because of this 6-winged flying dragon, who isn't even considered as a genuine member of the Dragon tribe? The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's eyes became ruthless upon witnessing their expressions. He was just about to blow up when Lindong gently patted his shoulder. Following which, Lindong could not be bothered to say anything unnecessary to Luo Tong's group. Instead, with a clench of his hand, a purple gold dragon seal appeared before a mysterious pressure spread. I am the Dragon Tribe's newly appointed punishment elder. Do you have any other questions? Lindong's calm voice spread in the sky. Not only did the voices of Luo Tong's group vanish in an instant, but even the plains below suddenly became quiet. Many pairs of eyes stared in shock at Lindong, who was hovering in the sky while holding onto a dragon seal. Dragon's tribe, newly appointed punishment elder? Is this a joke? The ridiculing expressions on the faces of Luo Tong's group stilled a little at a time. They were stunned as they stared at the punishment seal in Lindong's hands. Meanwhile, there was some disbelief surging in their eyes. However, they could detect an extremely powerful pressure from that seal. As a result, Luo Tong clearly knew that this pressure did indeed originate from the Dragon tribe. That was the genuine Dragon Tribe punishment seal, and only the punishment elder was qualified to possess that item. How is this possible? Luo Tong muttered to himself. He was well aware of the status of the punishment elder in the Dragon Tribe. In fact, the punishment elder was only ranked below the tribe leader. However, how was it possible that the Dragon Tribe would give a human such authority? However, he quickly recalled the Dragon Tribe martial arts that Lindong had used earlier and the ancient pure Dragon Tribe pressure that radiated from within his body. That pressure was definitely not something that an ordinary Dragon Tribe expert possessed. In fact, even some elders of the Dragon Tribe did not possess it. Just what relationship did this fellow have with the Dragon Tribe? Luo Tong's heart was filled with shock. If this matter was true, it would be quite troublesome. The position that the punishment elder held in the Dragon Tribe far exceeded his position in the Nine Phoenix Tribe. Luo Tong involuntarily felt a headache when he thought of this. Evidently, the Nine Phoenix Tribe would not want to offend the punishment elder of the Dragon Tribe over the Four Titans Palace. Although the Nine Phoenix Tribe was not afraid of the Dragon Tribe, the price made it an unworthwhile trade. Luo Tong's expression changed rapidly. Finally, it turned into an unwilling gloominess. Regardless, it was impossible for him to take revenge for today's matter. Moreover, from the looks of it, the Four Titans Palace had the support of the Dragon Tribe and they had no reason to fear their Mang Mountain. All right, we'll accept our loss this time around. Luo Tong inhaled a deep breath of air. He extended his hand, gritted his teeth and said, "Return my 4 divine beast immortal suppression pillars and my Mang Mountain will withdraw." Lindong's expression became strange when he heard these words. He quickly smiled towards an angry-looking Luo Tong before he shook his head. Nope. What a joke. Why would he easily surrender something that he had gotten a hold of? Otherwise, he would have really gained nothing from today's extremely miserable fight. When he saw a smiling Lindong, Luo Tong, who was vigorously suppressing the anger in his heart, involuntarily vomited blood. His eyes appeared as though he was about to devour someone. This was the first time he felt such a suffocating sensation in so many years. Luo Tong was ultimately unable to get the 4 divine beast immortal suppression pillars back from Lindong, clearly making him extremely furious. However, the sudden revelations of Lindong's punishment elder identity had evidently increased Luo Tong's wariness of the former. Hence, even though he looked at Lindong with incomparably venomous eyes, he could only bring along a heart full of murderous intent as he withdrew with Tong Feng and the rest. They left the demonic beast ancient plains in a rather defeated manner. Lindong stood in the sky as he watched the large Mang Mountain army gradually recede like the tide. Only then did his tensed body gradually relax as fatigue swept across it, causing his limbs to feel rather weak. This bitter battle had not been easy at all, but it could not be helped. After all, there was still a tremendous gap between his strength and a true Samsara stage expert. Although the Sky Battle Arena battle had ended in a draw with Mang Mountain this time, Lindong understood that the main reason why Luo Tong had endured his anger and withdrew was because of the Dragon Tribe's presence. Managed to use someone else's name to intimidate others for once. Lindong muttered to himself. He was well aware that there was little relation between Four Titans Palace and the Dragon Tribe. However, from a certain point of view, the Dragon Tribe's willingness in handing the punishment seal to him also vaguely meant something. It was likely that the Dragon Tribe would not speak up as long as he did not do anything too ridiculous. Even if the Dragon Tribe was to learn of this matter, their silence would be a sort of acknowledgement. This was because they understood that Lindong, who possessed the primal dragon bone, had a potential that they highly valued. I will treat this as owing the Dragon Tribe a favor. This favor will be repaid when I have the opportunity to do so in the future. Lindong smiled. He was someone who always returned any favors given to him 10 times over. Such favors would always be remembered deep within his heart. We should also leave. Lindong turned his head and looked towards Little Flame, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the others as he chuckled and said, "Yes." Little Flame nodded and the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio exchanged a look with each other. None of them had any objections. If they had some ill feelings with regards to Lindong being the leader of the alliance before, these feelings had now completely disappeared with the end of the big battle. Lindong had used his strength to make them all understand that he did possess the qualifications to hold such a position. Moreover, as the punishment elder of the dragon tribe, only he was able to provide Four Titans Palace with a powerful backing that allowed them to be unafraid of Mang Mountain. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio turned their eyes away. They gazed at the endless sea of people on the plains as their eyes became a little excited. All of them were aware that from today onwards, Four Titans Palace would become the true overlord of the Beast War region. Moreover, their names would spread throughout the entire demonic beast world at a frightening speed. At that time, their reputation would become far greater than what it had been before. The clash between the two huge factions finally came to an end on the demonic beast ancient plains. The shock that originated from the end of this fight spread in an extremely short period of time. The final outcome of a tie had clearly exceeded the expectations of the majority. After all, there was a rather huge gap between the newly born Four Titans Palace and Mang Mountain. Yet, who could imagine that Four Titans Palace, which appeared to face certain defeat at the beginning, would actually manage to forcibly reverse the situation and end the match in a draw? Moreover, even though this earth-shaking fight had ended in a draw, everyone could tell that victory still belonged to Four Titans Palace. This was because they had managed to completely block the ferocious attacks of Mang Mountain. From this moment forth, the newly born Four Titans Palace was finally truly able to establish themselves in the Beast War region. The powerful existences within the other regions also did not dare to easily slight this newly formed faction. After all, no matter how one put it, the example of Mang Mountain was there for all to see. Moreover, Lindong's so-called Dragon Tribe's punishment elder identity also let others understood that there was a frighteningly large being behind Four Titans Palace. With the Dragon Tribe as a deterring force, Four Titans Palace was clearly able to safely exit its development stage and finally become a powerful faction which possessed the ability to protect itself. The shock created from that fight on the demonic beast ancient plains was clearly tremendous. Even after 10 days, the entire Beast War region was clearly still in an uproar over the matter. Amidst this uproar, the situation of the Beast War region was also stealthily changing. In the past, this region was extremely chaotic and the various factions did not see eye to eye with each other. Now, however, this region had a colossus with the ability to subdue any other faction. With the appearance of this colossus, it was naturally unwilling to allow the enormous territory it owned to be in a mess. Now that the external problem had been resolved, it was time to make Four Titans Palace the only overlord of this Beast War region. Achieving such complete dominance was obviously not an easy task. There were originally 8 demon commanders in the Beast War region and the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio were the strongest amongst them. Other than the previous demon commander Shusong of Deep Lightning Mountain, who had been killed by Lindong and the rest, there were still 4 other demon commanders. All of them were relatively famous leaders in this Beast War region and clearly posed some obstruction to Four Titans Palace's desire to completely occupy the Beast War region. After all, even though they were reliant on the 3 great demon commanders in the past, they still possessed some autonomy and were fully deserving leaders in their territories. However, once they merged with Four Titans Palace, their prestige as leaders would definitely be reduced and they might even become restricted by others. Therefore, they naturally felt some resistance in their hearts with regards to the reduction of their prestige and Lindong was also well aware of this. Hence, he invited the 4 demon commanders to the current headquarters of Four Titans Palace, Deep Lightning Mountain. An hour later, the 4 demon commanders finally chose to fully merge with Four Titans Palace under the indifferent eyes of the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, Ghost Condor Demon Commander and Golden Ape Demon Commander. It was not overly difficult to convince these 4. Lindong merely calmly informed them that there will no longer be any other independent factions within the Beast War region in the future. Otherwise, such a faction would be the enemy of Four Titans Palace, and Four Titans Palace could only eliminate its enemies. Hence, there were only 2 choices for them: join Four Titans Palace or be exterminated. This was overbearing and merciless. However, Lindong understood this was the only way to completely suppress these extremely proud and untamable demon commanders. Of course, besides his overbearing approach, Lindong had naturally promised them some benefits. The most attractive thing for these demon commanders was to own a powerful divine object. Such an item possessed a great allure for people like them. Faced with this carrot and stick approach, even the 4 demon commanders could only submit. The current Four Titans Palace was in existence which possessed a strength comparable to 5 Samsara stage experts. What could they do against it with their strength? Moreover, they also did not lack ambition. On their own, it was likely that they would not be able to achieve much in their lifetime. Instead of this, it was better to fight together with Four Titans Palace. The fact that they had the backing of the dragon tribe gave them a little pride when mentioned to others. With the submission of the 4 demon commanders, the following matters became much easier to deal with. In response to the recruitment of Four Titans Palace, most factions within the Beast War region chose to submit after some thought. Of course, there were naturally some exceptions. However, these exceptions gradually disappeared after Little Flame led the tiger-devouring army and completely eliminated the most vocal opposition. Hence, the entire Beast War region was in an extremely lively integration phase. Many small factions flowed like streams, entering Four Titans Palace. This allowed its originally enormous body to grow increasingly big and powerful. Of course, such an integration was only at the initial stage. It still required a long period of time in order to completely build up a strong metal bucket like Four Titans Palace, and they similarly needed substantial time to increase their cohesiveness. Lindong had given the authority to do this to Little Flame and the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio. He was indeed not very proficient when it came to such matters. After all, he did not possess the terrifying ability to command like Tang Xinlian. The latter could even manage the enormous Flame Divine Hall in such an orderly manner that even her teacher Mo Luo could not intervene. Although the Beast War region was chaotic all year round, there were several hidden experts within it. Lindong believed that if he was to properly draw in and absorb these people, the potential that Four Titans Palace had would definitely far surpass that of Mang Mountain. When that time came, it might perhaps be time for him to truly return to the Eastern Xian region. He had said back then that the day he returned to the Eastern Xian region would be the day that Yuan Gate shall be destroyed. Returning alone would really be a little lacking with regards to the intimidation factor. After Lindong handed the many matters of Four Titans Palace to Little Flame's group, he quietly entered into cultivation seclusion. During his fight with Luo Tong, he could sense the inadequacy of his cultivation level. His insufficient strength caused him to be unable to fight for prolonged periods of time. Although Luo Tong had lost at the demonic beast Ancient Plains, it did not mean that he had truly been defeated by Lindong. As an extremely strong expert from the 9 Phoenix tribe, he definitely possessed some other techniques. Hence, it was hard to say who would be the victor in a true death match. Therefore, he must continue to raise his strength. However, this quiet training of Lindong only lasted for 7 days before he was awoken from his training by Little Flame. Lindong immediately saw the latter's grim expression when he exited the training room. "What is it?" Lindong slightly narrowed his eyes. Little Flame looked at Lindong and hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Someone from the celestial demon Martin tribe has arrived. He seems to have been sent by second brother." Lindong's pupils instantly shrunk upon hearing these words. Given his understanding of Little Martin, the latter was an extremely proud person and would try to solve any problems he faced on his own no matter how large they were. Yet, Little Martin had gotten a messenger to deliver a message from within the tribe. "Looks like that fellow has encountered a very troublesome matter." Lindong chuckled. He looked at the somewhat anxious face of Little Flame as an extremely sharp light gathered in his black eyes. Wanting to touch a brother of his was not going to be so easy. This video will end here.